I'm Mike Uyak. I love to try new things, and I've had culinary adventures all around the world, as well as right at home. I've had really wonderful food, as well as some really horrible food. I'd like to share some of my adventures with you, and we'll see if I have what it takes to fix whatever goes wrong. This is Recipe Redemption. Greetings, Redeemers, and welcome to another episode of Recipe Redemption. Today, I'm sort of feeling the spirit of the season. The holidays are actually a little ways off, but while I was browsing through my local international grocery store, in the spice aisle I ran across this stuff. It's frankincense. And it's a little weird for a couple of reasons. One, it's not a spice. In fact, people usually don't consider it to be edible at all. It's a resin that is harvested from trees of the genus Boswellia, usually in the Middle East, some parts of Southeast Asia. Words from the Old French, Frankincense, or high quality incense. It's basically burnt as an incense, or you can produce an essential oil through steam distillation to have a fragrant perfume ingredient. It has a sort of, there's a citrus component to it. Because it is a resin, there's sort of a piney scent. So I mean, honestly, just sticking my nose in this, it smells like something I clean my toilet with. But doing a little more research, in addition to being used as an incense and a perfume ingredient, the essential oil has actually also been used culinarily throughout the Middle East and Southeast Asia. And I wanted to explore that a little bit, because I thought, wouldn't it be interesting for your holiday get-togethers if you were able to bring something that actually has frankincense in it? Now, myrrh, not so much. That you make a balm out of it, and that's it. It's not really useful as an ingredient in cooking. Gold, not so much either. You can put gold foil on things if you want to be really bougie. Or drink Goldschlager, which has got flecks of gold flake in it, but otherwise it doesn't actually do anything for you. It doesn't add any flavor or anything like that. It's just there to say how posh I am that I can eat little bits of gold and poop it out and not worry about the fact that I just spent $50 on something that did nothing for me. But I digress. Frankincense. Usually it's, they obtain the essential oil through steam distillation. We're not doing that today because I don't have the gear for it and I don't have the patience. But you can also produce the essential oil through solvent extraction. And that's basically what I'm going to do. All I want is that slightly lemon, balsamic sort of flavor and aroma, just a hint of it to add to things that I cook with. So here's how I make it. To make my frankincense essential oil, I'm going to take some of the resin and smash it up. I'm sure there's a better way to do this than I'm doing, because I'm still finding bits of this stuff around my kitchen. But basically, I want to break the resin into smaller pieces so that it has a higher surface area to mass ratio, and the flavor and aroma will disperse a little bit better in the oil. I'm not going to torture you by making you watch me try to shove this all into the bottle that I've chosen, so let's skip ahead. On top of the resin, I'm going to add a neutral flavored
edible oil, canola oil, safflower oil, something like that. You don't want anything too strong because you don't want anything to compete with the flavor and aroma of the frankincense itself. It's going to be fairly subtle, so you don't want anything to compete with that. Then just stopper up your bottle and place it in a warm place, like on a sunny windowsill, for 2 days. Alternatively, you can heat some water up, not quite to boiling, and place the bottle in that hot water and just let it sit there for a couple of hours. I'm going to start my frankincense shortbread cookies by sifting together a cup of all-purpose flour, a half cup of powdered sugar, and about 1/8 of a teaspoon of sea salt into a mixing bowl. As for the wet team, the recipe that I have actually calls for a little bit over a tablespoon of Arak Haddad mastic, which is a Middle Eastern liquor that's kind of similar to ouzo or raki. It's a grape-based liqueur, but it ends up having this sort of anise, black licorice flavor to it. I don't have that. It's actually prohibitively expensive for me to get a hold of it. If you can get a hold of it, great. You can substitute with ouzo, raki, or even absinthe if you have it. I have vermouth, which is not close, but it's as close as I'm going to get, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm combining that with half a cup of unsalted butter, room temperature, and I'm adding about 1/4 of a teaspoon of my frankincense essential oil. And simply add the wet ingredients to the dry. Use your spatula to sort of smush it all together until the mixture is mostly combined. Then you can switch to using your hands to mix the dough gently, and it's going to make this sort of sticky, sort of greasy dough. I'm just going to stick that in the fridge for a few minutes while I work on my almonds. Now, my frankincense candied nuts. Starting with a saucepan over medium heat, I'm adding about 4 tablespoons of honey. I'm not really measuring this out. I hate doing that. I'm just going to sort of eyeball it. Once the honey starts to warm up, you'll see it start to thin. It'll roll around the pan a little easier, and you may actually see a little bit of boiling around the edge. At that point, add 175 grams of raw almonds. And just because I'm all about gilding the lily, I'm adding an equal volume of pistachios. Tossing the nuts in the honey to coat really well, and then I'm turning off the heat here, and I'm adding about a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, about 1.5 teaspoons of sea salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and stirring to combine. Make sure everything's nice and coated. Once everything is evenly coated with the spices and sugar, at the very end I'm adding about 1/8 of a teaspoon of my frankincense essential oil and stirring well to combine. Spread the nut mixture out onto a parchment-lined baking sheet so that it's all one layer. Bake at 325 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes or until they start to brown just a little bit. Because the cookies and the nuts bake at the same temperature, I decided to put them on the same sheet here. So I'm just taking my cookie dough and by hand pinching off a little bit and rolling it into a round. And one thing I forgot to do during this is once you've got your cookie dough panned up, you're supposed to smash them down with the back of a spoon or a glass or something like that so that they're a little bit flatter. I forgot to do that, so my cookies ended up being a little, I guess, taller than they're supposed to be. Once that's done, allow them to cool before removing from the baking sheet and breaking apart. Discovered that there is actually a recipe for frankincense ice cream, and it really couldn't be simpler. Basically, just take your standard French custard style ice cream base and add what ends up being about a half a teaspoon of your frankincense essential oil made with an edible oil. Mix it in really well and churn just like any other ice cream.
So, here we are. Shortbread cookies. A little taller than the shortbread cookies they should be, but perfectly decent shortbread cookies. People are texting me. Honestly, I think I could have actually used more of the frankincense essential oil in these. The flavor is so subtle. Not the flavor of the actual cookie is kind of overpowering the flavor of the frankincense. It's there, but it's very, very, very subtle. Now, I let the frankincense roasted nuts get a little toasty. And there's a little bit more of a not quite burnt flavor, but the frankincense is there. And it's more on the back of the throat. The toasted spices that went with it are really coming through. But this is really quite tasty. No? The frankincense ice cream. Oh, that's the best of the bunch. Because I started with a really neutral ice cream base, there's nothing to get in the way of the frankincense flavor. So there's that citrusy, sort of woodsy, what one website I found describes as a balsamic sort of flavor, but not like balsamic vinegar, as in like a balsam sort of really flavor aroma. That's really quite good. I'm really actually impressed with that. So, the upcoming holiday season, you've got some dinner parties to go to. You could do worse than to get some frankincense into it. Incorporate that into some of the dishes that you bring and see what people say. These are really good. So, frankincense and food. Who knew? Look forward to more discoveries in future videos. So, by all means, please stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and like the video, please. And if you have any other ideas or things that you want me to try, drop me a line and let me know. Because I am encouraged by some of the experimentation I've done recently to try an ever-expanding list of unusual ingredients and strange dishes. So until next time, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Recipe Redemption.